Hello everyone, we are group 3 from class DS66A under the Mathematical Static course. Our group includes Tạ Thành Đạt, Bùi Duy and Đặng Nhật Bình, supervised by Mr. Bùi Dương Hai. In this project, we analyze the relationship between household income, education spending, and public service assets in Lạng Sơn province using data from the Vietnam Household Living Standard Survey. Our goal was to understand how difference in income affect investment in education and access to environmental services such as garbage disposal. Heading up to the introduction, over the past decade, Vietnam has made great progress in improving living standards and reducing poverty. However, inequality between regions and income groups remain a major issue, especially in northern mountainous provinces like Lạng Sơn. Our study focused on three main indicators: income per capita, education expenditure, and garbage disposal expense. By comparing data from 2 years 2018 and 2020, we aim to see how household welfare changed over time and whether higher income truly leads to better access to education and public service. Move to the part 1. Lạng Sơn represents a typical case of uneven development, where the economic growth, education, and infrastructure progress at different speeds. Understanding this gap helps reveal how economic inequality translates into inequality in living standard. Our analysis doesn't just describe numbers, it highlights how these patterns affect policy making and social equity in developing areas. Now let's move to chapter 1, income per capita. This session look at how average household income changed between 2018 and 2020 across different income quartiles from the poorest to the richest. Figure 1.1 shows the average household income in each quartile. In 2018, the distribution was relatively balanced. The poorest group earned around 9 units, while the richest earned about 55 units. However, in 2030, the gap widened dramatically. The poorest group income fell to 3.8, while the richest group income rose rapidly to nearly 97. This tells us that low and middle income households suffer a major decline, while high income households grew even wealthier. The result suggests that economic gains were concentrated in the top income group, possibly because they had more stable jobs, better access to capital, or recovering faster from economic shocks. Meanwhile, the poorest households were more vulnerable and less able to recover. Overall, between 2018 and 2030, income inequality in Lạng Sơn increased significantly. This highlights the need for more inclusive economic policies, such as income support programs, access to vocational training, and stronger social protection system to help vulnerable and middle-income families. These steps are essential to ensure more equitable and sustainable development in the province. Next, the presentation will continue in Chapter 2, Educational Expand.
Okay, so in this part, our team will dig into the educational expenditure and its correlation with the income, with the average income. You will see that in this figure, in 2018, households in higher income quartiles, Q3 and Q4 consistently spend more on education. But in 2020, their spending dropped sharply, likely due to the economic disruptions of COVID-19. Interestingly, the lowest income group Q1 increased spending, which may reflect targeted support or a shift in priorities. Overall, the pandemic seems to have reshaped education investment patterns across income groups. Move to the next slide in figure 2.2. It compares the relationship between income per capita and education expenditure in 2018 and 2020. In 2018, we see a clear upward trend. Urban households cluster at higher income levels and spend more on education, suggesting a positive association. But by 2020, the regression line flattens and data points are more scattered, especially among rural households. This indicates that the link between income and education spending weakened, with more variability and less predictable behavior. Okay, so in this slide, in figure 2.3 shows box plots comparing urban and rural households. In 2018, urban households spent slightly more, but the ranges overlapped and both groups had outliers. By 2020, the medians and ranges become nearly identical, with high spending outliers in both. This symmetry suggests that regional differences in education expenditure narrowed over time, likely due to the pandemic's broad impact. The box plots highlight overlap and variability, setting the stage for the statistical testing.
Okay, now let's move on to garbage disposal expense. First is the mean garbage expense in 2018 and 2020. This chart compares the average waste collection cost across income quartile in 2018 and 2020. As we can see, in 2018, only the higher income groups Q3 and Q4 spend anything on garbage collection, while the poorest group Q1 has zero expense and Q2 really low for 40.44. By 2020, things started to change. The poorest group Q1 began to pay around 97,000 VND, showing that the collection services finally reached some lower income areas. At the same time, the richest household Q4 saw a big increase from 147 to nearly 345,000 BND, meaning waste collection system expand strongly and very dramatically in urban and high-income zones. Overall, the chart clearly shows that the urban and rural gap still exists. Oh no, the chart shows that the income gap still exists. Richer families pay for organized waste collection, while poor or rural families often do not use the services. Next is the mean garbage expanding area, which I draw the figure for you. The second chart compare urban and rural area. In 2080, urban households spend about 234,000 BND per year, while rural households spend almost nothing, only 6.6 thousand BND, nearly zero. By 2020, both numbers increased, but the gap still remained huge. 339,000 compared to 59,000 BND in rural areas. There are two main reasons for this. First, most waste management costs in rural areas were covered by the government. They give you subsidies, so many poor households can cover this. And many remote households were not reached by formal collection systems, so they didn't have to pay. And second, many households still handle their own waste by burning, burying, or reusing organics and recycled material. So overall, the data suggests that waste collection services expand after 2018, but access remain unequal, especially between urban and rural communities. And that is the end of our presentation, and thank you for listening.